Buddhism. Buddhism is a word that has been created long after the body death of Siddhartha Gautama Shakya, known as the Shakyamuni, the saint or sage of the Shakya family, who lived, irrespective of what modern scholars say, somewhere around 2,600 years ago in northern India. The crown prince who abdicated the throne, left his son and wife behind, went off on his search for great enlightenment, was actually very quickly drawn to the Vedic tradition that teaches Vedic meditation today. He met, as one of his first experiences, the great teacher from our tradition. You know, when you learn Vedic meditation, we pay homage to an ancient tradition of masters going back thousands of years. And in that time zone, around about 2,600 years ago, lived a great teacher by the name of Gaudapadacharya. And Gaudapada was a master well known in those times, and was approached by the young Siddhartha Gautama Shakya, who had not yet become the Shakyamuni, and was asked, "What should I do? I'm a seeker. I need to seek enlightenment. I need to find the answer to the problem of suffering. How do we go beyond suffering?" And Gaudapadacharya said to him, "You don't yet know who you are. You're already a great realized master. I can see the future. And you're already that. But you're in your seeking phase right now. That's part of your story. And another part of your story is you have to acquire this on your own. It's part of it. So now go off and acquire the experience of the self self-sufficiently, and you have my blessing." And off he went. Young Siddhartha then wandered for many more years, practiced very, very deep austerities and so on. And then eventually, having gone beyond all of those things, discovered what he referred to as the middle way, an effortless way of experiencing oneness with the underlying field of being, nirvana. Nirvana gave him liberation of all of his potential and liberation from the shackles of the past, nirvana. That experience of cosmic consciousness, as we call it in modern English terms. I admire very greatly your loyalty to what became later the teachings of the Buddha. You know, he wasn't referred to as Buddha any time in his lifetime. He was called Shakyamuni. He later on was referred to as a master of the intellect. Buddhi in Sanskrit means intellect. Buddha means a master of that. So long after his body death, people began referring to him as the Buddha. And in modern Buddhist terms, he's referred to as the historic Buddha, meaning that Buddhist teachings were something that evolved much later. And so what we see today as the teachings of the Buddha actually are the teachings of some of his followers. He notoriously had there in North India, and by the way, the Shakyamuni never in his lifetime ventured outside of a circumference of about 100 miles from his birthplace. He was a North Indian and lived inside that circle. He walked and moved around very freely. He had 50 years of teaching after his nirvana. He received his first experience of cosmic consciousness at around the age of 30, and then dropped his body round about the age of 80. And in that 50 years, he had about 800 disciples who also gained very high consciousness states. After his body death, all those disciples fanned out across the globe. Some of them went north, east, south, west, in every direction. And then Buddhism was born. Buddhism is the variation of ideas that come from the mix of some of Buddha's original ideals, some of Buddha's original teachings and techniques, mixed with the local cultures. And this is why Sri Lankan Buddhism is utterly different to Tibetan Buddhism, which is utterly different to the Buddhism of Myanmar, which is utterly different to the Buddhism of Japan, utterly different again to the Buddhism of China, utterly different to, in ancient times, the Buddhism of Afghanistan, and utterly different again to to the Buddhism of modern India. There are Buddhists, of course, living in modern India. So then, what is this Buddhism actually? Well, the fact is, whatever it is we've learned as relative to the historic Buddha, the Shakyamuni, is a relatively recent innovation. And yet, we can feel the echo and the vibrancy of some of his state of consciousness still in those teachings that are a construction of more recent generations. And there should be no conflict between the practice of Vedic meditation and those following some of those tenets of the Buddha. Much of what is taught in the name of Buddhism today is based on ideas about how the Buddha himself looked, how he dressed, how he ate, how he slept, how he moved, attempting to emulate his, the fact of his celibacy, attempting to emulate the fact that he appeared to need very little. For example, he only ate so much food as could be held in the two cupped hands like this once a day. This is the legend of the Shakyamuni. He took no partner and led a celibate life, as far as we know. And he wore a particular kind of orange. That orange emulated today is different in Tibet and different in Thailand, different in Burma, and so on and so forth. But people knew that he was rather fond of orangey sort of colors. He shaved his head, and so people sometimes think if I shave my head and wear the orange and eat this much and don't have a partner and things like that, then perhaps I'll be able to attain to the state of consciousness of Buddha. The fact is, Buddha's state of consciousness simply was it played out in all of those ways of lifestyle that he embodied. They were not the causes of his enlightenment. This was the expression of enlightenment in one particular man, at one particular time, in a particular part of the world, geographic and cultural settings, and the weather of the place and the elevation of the place all dictated a certain set of behaviors. And so what is the appropriate way for an enlightened person to behave? An enlightened person needs to be meditating twice every day, as did Buddha. One thing we know about Buddha is that he meditated twice every day, and that he made sure that his disciples knew how to meditate, and that they also meditated twice every day. Exactly what was he teaching? Nobody in the modern era knows that. But we do know that Buddha himself was a product of the Vedic civilization. He actually restored some truths of Vedic ideals of transcendence that had been lost by most of the people in India. So we see no conflict between our practice and what has become known as quotes unquote Buddhism. There shouldn't be any difficulty in doing your Vedic meditation twice a day and reading about the Buddha, loving the Buddha. Buddha is very lovable, and seeing to what extent your experiences match his.